This video covers the third concept from Unit 5, which is properties of trapezoids and kites. There will be an ensuing tutorial that will cover the problems from 5.3b. This just goes over the properties and a couple of the examples. So trapezoid is a quadrilateral that has one and only one pair of parallel sides. There's two types of trapezoids. There are scalene trapezoids, and then there's isosceles trapezoids. Isosceles trapezoids have the sides are congruent, so the sides that are not parallel are congruent on isosceles trapezoids. On scalene trapezoids, they are not congruent. A kite is a quadrilateral that has two pairs of consecutive congruent sides. So it looks like this. So two pairs of consecutive congruent sides. Okay. So as I mentioned, on the trapezoids, there are isosceles and scalene. So for the scalene trapezoids and the isosceles trapezoids, the consecutive angles are always going to be supplementary because these are going to be same side interior angles. So this angle plus that angle is going to be 180. This angle plus this angle is going to be 180. So it's the way on scalene triangles or scalene trapezoids and isosceles trapezoids. So these two add up to 180. Those two add up to 180. And then another characteristic for there's some other characteristics for trapezoids is that for isosceles trapezoids, the non-parallel sides are congruent. The opposite angles are going to be supplementary. It's not the way on scalene trapezoids. The base angles are going to be congruent, so these two angles are congruent to each other, and those two angles are congruent to each other, and then the opposite angles are supplementary. And then for the mid-segment of trapezoids, and this is any kind of trapezoid, the mid-segment is going to be equal to half of the sum of the two parallel lines. So EF is equal to AB plus DC divided by 2, or another way to write that or to solve that, and that's the way we'll be solving it, is it'll be 2 times EF, so 2 times this mid-segment equals AB plus DC. Again, that's 2 times EF equals AB plus DC. And then the other figure is called a kite, and you've probably never heard of these before, aside from the kind that you might see at the beach flying. Actually, it's back on this side. So a kite, they have exactly two pairs of consecutive congruent sides, as we mentioned. So those two are congruent to each other. Those two are congruent to each other. The two pairs, so actually, this is wrong. So this should say one pair of opposite angles are congruent. So angle B is going to be congruent to angle D. And then the diagonals are perpendicular, so that means that all four of these angles here are going to be right angles. And there's one other characteristic that was not listed here, and that's the diagonal that bisects the angles formed by the congruent sides. So this right here, it bisects this angle and this angle. So these two angles are going to be congruent to each other, and these two angles are going to be congruent to each other. Okay. So like here, the way we would figure these out, that's 57 is going to be 52. All these are going to be 90. So to get 6, we do 90 minus 52, which will end up being 38. So that's going to be 38, and that's going to be 38. And then that's 65. That's going to be 65. And then we could do 90 minus 65 to get 25. And so that's going to be 25, and that's going to be 25. So if we are given two of these angles out here or here, we can figure out all of them. Okay.